Thank you so much. I am speechless with that amazing introduction. Good evening to all of you assembled in various parts, in various places with various people, all for one purpose, and that is this wonderful concert this evening. I want to thank Mr. Laval and Mr. Beaver and all of the faculty and staff and administrators of North Hills School District for inviting me, for allowing me to be part of this. I want to thank my dear friends at Jupiter Band Instruments and the KHS America Academic Alliance for making this possible for me to be there, and my wonderful friends at Alfred Music. But most importantly, I want to thank each of you for being here tonight, even though it's virtual, to celebrate music. For that's what we're here to do, to celebrate music, specifically the music made here at North Hills High School and throughout the North Hills School District. The passion that is instilled in students for music, the talents that they have developed in music, the love they have for music, and the life lessons that they have learned through music. See, one thing that each of the musicians you have heard and you're going to hear this evening have in common is that they possess a love of music. Whether they found music or music found them, it is an important part of each of their lives. It is an important part, therefore, of this remarkable community. And each of you are part of the legacy of great music making that is North Hills High School. Now, I have to tell you, I've known the North Hills High School band program for longer than I'm going to guess almost everyone listening has been alive. And I have to tell you the story of how I first came upon this. I was at the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association conference as a very, very young person. I was a graduate student, and part of my responsibility was to go to conventions and to help with promoting the school that I was attending. And I got there and I set up everything I needed to set up, and I took a walk to make sure I could find my way back to the hotel. And as I'm wandering down this hallway, I heard a band playing, a concert band. Well, being a band person, I was intrigued. And as I got closer, I could tell it wasn't just a band playing, it was a band playing. And they were remarkable. So I had to sneak in. I didn't know what was going on, but I thought, let me try to sneak in. Well, fortunately, the door I snuck in happened to be the back of the band, so no one saw me come in. And I was listening to this band play, and I was captivated. If there was a photo from all of those years ago, I would have had a little more hair, not much, but a little more. But my jaw would still, 45 years or 46 years later, be down on the ground. Because the band I heard just blew me away. It was extraordinary. And they happened to be rehearsing for a performance they were going to be doing, I think, the next day. Well, not knowing who this band was, I saw a woman who was a parent chaperone to my right. And I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, pardon me. And I leaned down to whisper so I wouldn't interrupt the rehearsal. And I said, pardon me, what high school band is this? And she said, North Hills. And I said, North Hills, outside of Pittsburgh. Yeah. And I was just dumbfounded. And about, a minute later, she tapped me on the shoulder and she brought me down to whisper, and she said, by the way, this is the 9th grade band. I remember to this day the piece. It was a piece called Music for a Carnival, written for the Eastman Wind Ensemble. And it was being played by then the 9th grade band. Now, that was back when there were 3 bands. Now I know it's grown to 4 and in the program. But that was my first introduction. It is an introduction that has stuck with me all of these decades later. For me to remember the piece, the place, I could take you to the room in the Hershey Convention Center where this was being held. And my friends, all of you who are performing tonight, all of you who are part of this community, all of you share a couple of things. And that is that each of you are part of a legacy. The legacy that I started knowing about 46 years ago, but continues to this day and happened long before that. Each of you as students has a responsibility to care and nurture that legacy. Each of you should be proud of the musical family that you are part of. For music has captivated you And as I said, music is part of your life. But it wasn't that you just learned to be literate musicians. It wasn't just that you learned how to play well. It was that music taught you lessons far and wide beyond just the little notes that are found on a page of white. Each of you learned so much through your teachers, through your colleagues, and through the art of music. And I just want to remind you of a few of them that I know because I've been to the school, I've watched rehearsal there. I know, and as an outsider, I still am in awe that each of you have learned that an ensemble is the result of a team. It is like a chain, and every link has to be strong, for a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And you've learned that the collective efforts of every member of that musical family, contributing, the synergy of all of those musicians on stage that you have heard and will hear, that the sum is greater than the parts. And that is a lesson that you will take with you for the rest of your lives because of music. You've learned to have the highest expectations, not just for yourself, but for what you do and how you do it. You all somehow have learned, maybe not in these words, but the sentiment that the great artist Michelangelo left us when he said, the greater danger for most of us is not that our expectations are too high and we miss hitting them. It's that they're too low and that we do hit them. See, every day throughout rehearsals, whether they be virtual or in person, throughout North Hills, that lesson is taught, it's shown, and it's valued. You've learned that you don't need to make a change in the world to make a difference in the world. You've learned to have big dreams, to go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll see even farther. Because see, I know for a fact that music's been put on stands in those rehearsal halls, that at first glance you would have thought, this isn't possible, but you put your heart and your soul and your minds into it because you knew that as soon as you could do that, you'd be able to see something farther. See, at the base of a mountain, we all learn that the only thing you really see is the top of that mountain. It's only when we get to the top of that mountain that we see that there are others to climb. And every day throughout North Hills, that lesson is taught. You've learned to achieve all that is possible, that we must attempt the impossible to be as much as we can be and dream of being more. But, you know, I started thinking, well, how would I share with you why music's so important? I mean, I could go on for hours citing lots of different scholars and teachers and people who know far more than I ever will. And I started thinking, but why is music so important? And I decided I would share with you a story that is my nearest and dearest. It goes back to my earliest experiences as a teacher. You see, I was asked once, why is music so important? Why are we gathered this way? Why are ensembles working so hard to perform? Why are teachers working so diligently? Why is music important? And I thought, you know, if someone's going to ask me that, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life talking about music to students and teachers and administrators, I darn well better have an answer. And the best answer I could come up with was something that sounded rather silly. It makes me feel good. I love it. I feel joy. My heart swells. And it was all stuff that really I couldn't put into words. So I started studying and I started doing research into it. And I read that Plato, one of the greatest scholars of all time, said that music is a moral law. Not a great way to kill 42 minutes between math and science, but a moral law. But he never really said why. And then there's the quadrivium and the trivium that Aristotle and Socrates and so many other great scholars, the 7 subjects that make a human being whole. Well, you know that music's one of them, but they never really said why. So I went on to the person who's called the father of modern education, John Amos Comenius. He wrote a book called The Great Didactic. It outlines education pretty much the way we still do it today. Music's everywhere, but he never said why. So I went on to Lowell Mason, the father of modern music education, and a myriad of composers who had given their life to music education, Orff and Dalcroze and Kodály and Hindemith. I kept studying, I couldn't find an answer. And I finally realized, you know what? Maybe I'm not that stupid. I figure if those legendary scholars couldn't come up with an answer of why music's so important, I shouldn't be expected to. And at that moment, I thought back to one of my earliest teaching experiences. It was in a massively large middle school. Honest to goodness, every day I was there, I got lost. And I was working with a remarkable band director, far senior to me, who was just a legend, sadly passed away just a few years ago. And so we were there the first day of school, and we were sipping a cup of coffee in the band office before school started, just chatting. And I heard a trumpet coming from the band room, which you could hear right behind us. And I jumped up and I thought, well, somebody came in early to practice, I'll go help them. So I start to run in, and my colleague says, Peter, sit down. So I sat down. He went in and taught this young man. Next day, same thing happened. Wednesday, same thing happened. I thought, this is so weird. Why wouldn't he let me teach this young man who comes in every day? And it's not really fair that he has to do it every day. So Thursday, my colleague ran up to the main office, which was upstairs, to get the mail. And I heard trumpets, so I ran into the band room. And I walked in, and there was a little boy, a 7th grader, who looked me in the eyes very suspiciously and said, who are you? And I said, I'm Mr. Boonshaft. I said, who are you? He said, my name is Billy. I'm in 7th grade, and I play the trumpet. And that's exactly how he talked. And I said, can I work with you today? He said, where's Mr. C? And I said, up in the office getting his mail, but I promise I can do this. He said, okay. So we started working together. We had a ball. Bell rang, time for school. Next morning, I heard trumpet. I jumped up. My colleague said, sit down. I said, nope. I met him yesterday, and I promised him I'd come back today to work with him. And I start to walk out of the band office, and I hear Peter. And I turned around to look at my colleague, and he said, please just be careful. I thought, be careful? That's crazy. I said, that's what you say to a soldier, a firefighter, a police officer. You don't say that to a band director. He said, well, I mean it. Well, I worked with Billy every day. And I noticed that his left hand, when he played his trumpet, shook a little more than it should have. So I went to his classroom teacher and I said, we share a little 7th grader that you have. We need to get a physical education teacher and maybe a teacher who could help him with some physical therapy. Get those little baby dumbbell weights, you know, the little tiny ones, strengthen that muscle, make it a little bit better. And this teacher said, Peter, sit down. And I did, and she said, what you're seeing is an early manifestation of a very rare form of muscular dystrophy that will take his life. It was like having the wind knocked out of me. And I said, that is an unacceptable answer. There's Sloan Kettering, Mayo Clinic. There are hospitals around the world. There are universities around the world. Someone's going to save this little 12-year-old boy's life. And she said, they've been everywhere, and they've gotten the same answer. And that is, there's nothing that we can do except enjoy him for the short time we're going to have him. Well, as the days went by, we worked together every day. And this horrid disease marched on to the point where the shaking grew very, very violent. And it got to the point just towards the Thanksgiving holidays where the only way Billy could play was to take his trumpet and throw the bell straight up to the ceiling. And then he'd have a narrow window of opportunity to play from where the bell came to just above the horizon until it fell back into his lap. He'd take another gust of air and he'd throw the bell back up and he'd play his few notes and do it over and over again. And as the weeks went by, it grew even worse, to the point where he could only play a note or two at a time. Finally, one day I saw the tears coming down his face, and I took his trumpet and I said, Billy, let's talk today. We're going to do some clapping exercises. We'll talk about trumpet playing. We'll listen to recordings. We'll mark some music, which we don't need to play today. He said, I want to play. And I said, it's okay. We don't need to play today. We'll play tomorrow. He said, I want to play. And he grabbed the trumpet from me and he threw the bell to the ceiling and he played his couple of notes. And finally, I took the trumpet again and I said, Billy, I've wanted to ask you a question for a long time, and I've never had the courage to ask it. And I think I need to today. With all the pain and all the heartache and all the disappointment and all the frustration, why is music so important to you? And this little 12-year-old child looked me in the eyes with the biggest brown eyes I've ever seen. And he said, Mr. Boonshaft, if you don't know, I can't tell you. And I realized that Billy saw the invisible. He heard the inaudible. He knew the unknowable. At once he understood why Plato and Aristotle and all of those others couldn't tell us why music is so important. You see, we all know that it lives in the hearts and souls of all those who learn music, all those who learn to know music, all those who have music touch their soul, and the people they look at and call teacher. Billy is long gone from this world. He is often in my thoughts. He is always in my heart, and he'll forever be in my soul, for he's the only one who ever taught me why music is that important. And that, my friends, is the most valuable lesson that every person you'll hear from tonight and for generations to come from North Hills will learn. The great James Thurslow Adams said, there are obviously two educations, One teaches someone how to make a living, the other how to live. The great Carlyle probably summed it up best when he said, music is a sort of unfathomable speech that at once allows you to gaze into the infinite. My friends, that is what each of you on this conference call, video, Zoom will be doing. You will be gazing into the infinite. For you see, no pandemic, no crisis, nothing will ever keep these wonderful young people and their teachers from making music. It will be here for all time. It will be in the blood, the heart, the soul, the life of every person who goes through the halls of North Hills School District, and especially the high school. But to the students, I say to you this: the mantle of responsibility for the legacy I speak of is now handed to you. It's been passed to your shoulders. Be proud of everything that has come before you in this remarkable school. Bring honor to every moment you have the privilege of being part of it, for you are the gift of the future. To the students, I hope you remember this wonderful Chinese proverb that I think of probably every day of my life. Watch your thoughts, for they become your words. Watch your words, for they become your actions. Watch your actions, for they become your habits. Watch your habits, for they become your character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. My friends, every day in music classrooms across this school district, those words are not just said or thought, they are done. I want to thank the school board for its support, the superintendent and all of the administrators, all of the families and parents who have supported each of these musicians and all the musicians to come. I want to thank all of the faculty throughout every building, and especially those 14 human beings that are music teachers in that district, who care more than is logical, who work harder than is reasonable, and have passed on the gift and love of music for generations to come. I wish you all the best of health. I wish you all who are graduating as seniors all the joy the world has to offer. I want to thank you all for allowing me to be part of this evening's performance. And I'll leave you with words to ponder as you listen to the rest of this wonderful concert. And they are from the great composer Igor Stravinsky, considered one of the greatest composers of all time. He said, "I haven't understood a single bar of music in my entire life, but I have felt each of them." Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I wish you all well, and that our paths cross again very, very soon. Thank you.